Good morning. In part one of our series on Joomla Extension Development using NetBeans 6.9 IDE, we covered the basics of how to create our extension from scratch and how to make it interact with Joomla 1.6 so that everything worked well so we could test from within the Joomla 1.6 environment. So today we're going to pick up on making the rest of NetBeans work within that same environment. We're going to set our SVN properties so that when we create a file, we get notification of changes and who made the changes, like you see here. Here we have the ID, which will show us the name of the file, the revision number, the date the file was changed, the time when the file was changed, and who the last person to change it was. And we're going to make this all happen automatically with every file we have within our project and with every new file we create within our project. So we're going to start by making sure our basic project properties are set correctly. In our last video, we talked about that PHP must always use the full files to delimit, not the shorthand. However, we don't want the closing tag. All right, this is two things that we're going to have to correct today in our existing extension. So let's double check our project. Let's make sure that we are doing that properly. Here you'll see, yes, it is unchecked, as we talked about. If yours looks like this, please uncheck it and hit OK. Now, you'll need to do this for every new project you create, unless you change your configuration file. Please pardon my voice today. It seems I've got a frog in my throat, so it's the best we're going to be able to do today. The next thing we need to do is we need to go to our team template, which is under Tools, Templates. And NetBeans has one bug in that if you mess up this template file, there doesn't appear to be any way to restore it. And the only way to fix things is to reinstall NetBeans. While you won't lose your projects doing this, it's a huge annoyance. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate that file. All right, where did it just go to? Then we're going to rename this file to Joomla PHP file, and we're going to save it. Then we're going to edit it. And this is the default style for NetBeans. Okay, we don't want to do this, so we're going to get rid of all that. Instead, we want to use the style defined in our coding standards. Let me find it real quick. Here it is. So we'll just go ahead and copy that. And we'll bring that into our default template. Here you'll see the ID we talked about again. We want our package name. In my case, it's going to be J Forum. And you want your copyright, which in my case is 2010. The company that it belongs to, J Forum. And your license type. And this is just fine for us. And then we're going to save that. Now, when we create a new file, let's just go ahead and pick one. File, new. And here you see we can make two types. Our Joomla PHP file, a PHP web page, or a standard PHP file if we went to other. We'll tell it Joomla. We're going to name it Demo. And we're going to finish it. And you'll see it automatically created the file in the right way. Now there's one piece that we left off. And so we're going to go back and we're going to fix that in our PHP file. And that is the define statement. In Joomla 1.6, there is a new way of defining this. So let's get banners.php. And we'll see that now we have to use the JExec statement. So what we do is we're going to copy that. We're going to bring it into our PHP file, and we simply post it. Now let's add a little comment. No direct access for security. Oh, we'll just leave that part out. This will protect our PHP files from being just looked at. They have to be run within the Joomla environment, or this statement here says go away. And that is exactly what we want for every new PHP file that we create. So we can go ahead and close that. Close that. Let's actually go ahead and close everything out. So now we have our template built right. We know that if we create a new file, let's delete that one and let's recreate it. And there's our Joomla PHP file. Let's recreate it like we had it before. Sure enough, there's our statement. So now we can just come down here and we can start coding. Everything's ready to rock and roll. Wonderful. So let's discard it. We don't need this. We don't need that file either. Now we need to go in and we need to set our SVN keywords. There are 5 keywords that you can set and 1 line type definition. You can set other ones if you choose, but there are 5 standards. So we're going to go to our trunk. We're going to go to SVN properties. And you'll see here we did an ignore. This config.xml was not covered in the last video because it's an add since we did our last video. You'll find information about this in the wiki that we covered. And this file will allow you to do local overrides for the variables that are inside the build file. And it'll help things a lot. And when you have a team that's working on commits, you don't want to be fighting over whose build path file you're using. So by using this config.xml, we can create our own custom build path, and so can all the other committers. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set our line style. We always want to use LF when we have multiple operating systems doing commits, which we don't know if we do or not, so let's just set it to be safe. Notepad won't like it, but so sad for Notepad, we're not coding in Notepad anyway. Unix systems won't like it if we don't do it, so it's just better that we do. So it's going to go through and it's going to set up the end of line style as LF for all files within the trunk. And when it completes that, you'll see that it went through and made changes. You see all these start lighting up blue, indicating, of course, that we have made changes. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start setting our keywords. And our keywords must be just like they show here. So we're going to do date, revision, author, head, URL, and ID. Case matters, and you want to make sure you've got a space between each one of these words. You want to make sure you put these all together at one time, because if you do it as separate keywords, it'll only remember the last keyword that you put in. It'll ignore everything else. And now we're going to update it. And again, it's showing you that it's changing the SVN keywords as shown. And we'll go through there and do all the rest of the files to make sure that they're all set properly. Once again, once it's done, it'll clear this little screen, show you that it's all done. Great. Now we've got them all set. Now we need to go ahead and commit those changes. So we're going to do it. Setting SVN keywords for our video demonstration. It's always important that you make a comment as to why you're committing these changes, so that anybody else looking at them, or perhaps if you need to roll back a change, you know where to pick up from. And now it's going to go through and do all that. As we said, there'll be 39 files that it's changing, and there it goes. Moving along very, very nicely. And it'll be done here in just a couple of minutes. we'll pause while it finishes this up. And once it's done, you'll see that it'll tell you which revision, the author, the date, and what the message was. Now let's go ahead and do our update so that we are at the same source code copy as what's in the trunk. Okay, and now you'll see that it's all done. And we can go through and look at our file. And sure enough, it says that I changed the file, when I changed it, and what file. Perfect. That's exactly what we want to do. And now if we look at the SVN properties for that file, we'll see that they are set appropriately. Now, sometimes you'll have some that are kind of strange. Like if we look at 1.6s, you'll see they don't have everything there. 1.5 had some that were part of the bug tracking system, but you see they're no longer used. But if you did have some obscure property that you wanted to set, you can do that. Demo bug, well, let's call it SVN demo bug, and we'll say foobar, and we add it. And then we say, oh darn, that's not what I wanted to do. I spelled it wrong. You can just click on it there, remove it, and away it goes. And when you do your commit and your update, it'll be all taken care of. Okay, so we've got that all done. Now, if you are using NetBeans plugins for SVN control, which I did here, right here, then it has a configuration file for SVN that we need to modify slightly so that when we create a new file, these SVN properties are automatically set. Otherwise, we have to go through and set them manually for every single new file we do, and that's just highly annoying. If you are using Tortoise, then there is a config file for that one. You can go through and choose which SVN type that you use, and where this config file is. Where did it go? Right here. If you use Tortoises, then you are simply using Tortoise's SVN control. If you don't have Tortoise installed, then you only have to worry about setting the properties in one place. This kind of property setting is called auto props. And for Windows, what we want to do is we're first going to go into NetBeans SVN configuration file, which you see here. So you drill down to it. Here's our config. I use Notepad++, which I recommend strongly for general text editing. And you see that by default it has no auto props set up. So we want to change that. If we look at Tortoise's auto prop SVN settings, which you will see here, you'll see that there are several things set up, and we're going to go ahead and use those, and we're going to add one of our own for PHP. So let's go ahead and copy this, and we'll bring it over. Now for Tortoise, you'll find the property set here. Okay? And we're going to add one for PHP. And then we want to remove the comment for every one of the files that we want this to apply to. And we want to make sure that, again, we are using Aleph for each of those. And we want to take care of that one for HTML. So let's set a few for .html equals svn keywords equal author, date, ID, rev or revision, URL, which is the same as head URL, a semicolon. Let's set the svn EOL, type it properly, EOL style equal to LF. I'm going to do the same thing for .php. And now we'll save that. And then we enter miscellany, which is somewhere in here. Here it is. We need to make sure that we have auto props enabled. And it's right there. So let's copy that section and paste it in here. Let's go ahead and clean up our coding just a little bit so things look better. Yes, we want that to yes. We'll save that change. And then, since I'm using Tortoise, I need to make the same changes within Tortoise. We don't have to worry about make files with Joomla. So we can just leave that be. Let's see, have we covered everything? Let's double check so everything looks the same. Yes, it looks fine. Did we set the text? Yes, we did. Great, now we've made our changes. We can close this. Now Tortoise and NetBeans will agree with each other. Let's go ahead and close NetBeans. And let's open it back up so that it will go ahead and read the config file. Alright. And let's see if we still have our test file here. No, we don't. So let's make our new file. Going to name it test2. And there's all the settings that we did. And we can go ahead and commit that file. We'll just commit the single file this time. Testing global new file svn keywords. And it's doing our commit for us. And then we're going to do our update. And you can already see that it went ahead and made all the changes that we told it to as a new file. And that's exactly what we want. So just by making those few changes, we now have our SVN properties automatically set on every new file. We have our SVN properties set properly in our trunk. We have our PHP template made and repeatable and follows within the Joomla 1.6 framework. So there is nothing left that we need to do to create a standard extension within the Joomla 1.6 framework other than now write our custom code. We hope this video has helped you. Have a nice day.